As we all know that how phrasal verbs are important to improve English language, and we also know that phrasal verbs make our English simple and understandable. So in today's video, I am going to tell you that how did I practice phrasal verbs and how much phrasal verbs I learned to make my English elegant. So without making delay, let's get into the video. Actually, when I started improving English language, at that time I had no idea that there were such a kind of verbs, phrasal verbs. I hadn't learned all those phrasal verbs during my study even. But yes, once I was reading something, at that time I came across a word that was a put. But before that word, there was another word that was down. So I had no idea that why did they join that down word to this word put. So to learn what was the meaning of that word put down, so I went to Google and searched for that meaning. At that time I learned that it was a phrasal verb. So when I was searching for phrasal verbs at that time, I came across a video. It was a Kanchana ma'am's video, and in that video she was telling that how phrasal verbs are important to improve this language. So, in that video, she also said that to improve this language, we have to learn at least 500 phrasal verbs. So, when she said that thing, I immediately started searching for phrasal verbs. And I do remember that from her video, I had learned at least 20 or 30 phrasal verbs. After that, even I had watched so many videos, and through those all videos, I had learned so many phrasal verbs. But yes, I couldn't learn 500 phrasal verbs. I just learned 300 phrasal verbs. Every day, I did write down at least 20 or 25 phrasal verbs, not more than that. So I gave it about 9-10 days, and I wrote down all those phrasal verbs, 300 phrasal verbs. I do remember that I had written down at least 300 phrasal verbs. So, to practice of all those phrasal verbs every day, I did tear off a page of my notebook and wrote down at least 5 phrasal verbs. And I practice all those phrasal verbs in a day at least 5 6 times I practice. So how did I practice of all those phrasal verbs? See, I didn't mug up anything. I tried to make use of each and every word whatever I learned during that period when I was improving this language. So in case of phrasal verbs even, I didn't mug up any phrasal verb, a single phrasal verb. I made use of all those phrasal verbs in my daily life. Let me tell you how did I practice phrasal verbs. See, suppose there is a phrasal verb get along with. So we do know that its meaning. It means that to have a friendly relationship with someone. So now what did I do that? I tried to relate that phrasal verb to my life. Suppose I have a friendly relationship with someone like with my brother. At that time I used like my brother and I get along well with each other. So that's how I tried to relate all those phrasal verbs which I had learned. Let me tell you some other examples. So, second example is put up with. It means that to tolerate and endure something. So, whenever there were some people who were toxic, at that time I did use this phrasal verbs. Like, I am not going to put up with that person. Like this, I used. So, third example is come down with. We do know that its meaning. It means that to start to get an illness. So whenever in my family there was a person who was sick, at that time I used this phrasal verbs. Like he came down with cold. Like this I used. So fourth example is come up with. Its meaning is produce something, especially when pressured or challenged. So whenever someone asked me for suggestions, at that time I said to that person that in my mind that I came up with this idea and that idea. So, fifth example is stand by. Its meaning is to continue to support someone. So, whenever someone helped me at that time, I always used this phrasal verb like he always stands by me. So, that's how I practiced phrasal verbs. And I do remember that I had learned all those phrasal verbs every day, 5 phrasal verbs. I revised at least 5 6 times every day. And before going to bed, even, I tried to remember what did I learn. And every day, whenever I went to bed, I didn't regret. I felt proud of myself that I didn't waste my time. I learned something to improve English language. So as we all know that to improve this language we have to learn phrasal verbs. You can use this method and try to relate all those phrasal verbs to your life. How can you use all these phrasal verbs in each situation? So first thing which we have to do, that is write down all phrasal verbs. Do not worry, you don't need to write down all those phrasal verbs at a time. You must write down at least 20 or 25 phrasal verbs every day and practice each of those phrasal verbs every day. Practice of 5 phrasal verbs and use all these phrasal verbs to improve your English. And if you like this method, please tell me it in my comment box, and also subscribe my channel. And thank you very much for watching my video.